Yeah, the simplest way to explain EMDR, because it is kind of a weird concept unless you go through it yourself, it's a little bit hard to wrap your mind around. So, EMDR actually stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So basically, well, I'll start with who founded it. So it was founded by a psychologist named Dr. Francine Shapiro, who was specializing in trauma. And for one day, she was walking in the forest, I remember her saying, and then she was thinking about kind of a distressing memory that came up for her. And as she was walking and thinking about it, she noticed that her eyes were moving back and forth just in a natural, process as she was thinking about it. And then as she came out of her walk and out of the forest, she thought, that doesn't seem as distressing right now to me. Something about the eye movement and the way she was thinking about the distressing event, it led the level of distress to go down in her body. And so basically, she founded EMDR, which is led by a therapist. And you can use your two fingers to have your eyes trace, the therapist's fingers as you talk about some event in your past that was distressful. Okay, caused you, it could be a severe event. It could be something like you were embarrassed in a situation, just something that you still continually think about that causes you some sort of distress in your life. And the more you do that, and the therapists have a technique, like there's different, you have to really have a therapist that's certified in this, because they have to assess for first, like emotional safety, physical safety, because if you do go through this process, you can kind of become re-traumatized if you're not in a safe situation, if that makes sense. So basically, you're using bilateral stimulation to reprocess events in your brain that have been stuck and you can't get past. And this helps them to release and the body to reprocess them so that they're more tolerable for the person.
Okay.
If that makes sense. I know
Wow. Yeah.
it's a hard thing to describe without getting too complicated.
Yeah.
It's a physical action causing a mental reaction. Physical action causing
Exactly.
a mental reaction.
There you
There
go.
you go.
Okay.
Took
Exactly.
took me a
Because
second to get that out of my brain.
well, and trauma in itself, the more research that comes out about trauma, it really is something that can stick in your body. Even though logically anybody with anxiety can attest to this, the most frustrating part is that you can logically tell yourself, I'm safe right now. This is fine. Everything's okay. But your body doesn't know that, because your body remembers the trauma and holds on to it because you were stuck in a place where you couldn't really find safety or couldn't escape it, or you have these negative self beliefs that hold on to it, like I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm this, I'm that. And it's really hard to get past that until you allow your brain to reprocess it in a different way, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Hmm. That
mm.
does make sense. And it's funny you're saying that trauma getting stuck. We just did an interview, or we had a discussion with Jessica Tracy. She does young, she's a Jungian coach, so Carl Jung, and also what is it? Jungian integrative
Jungian psychedelic integration.
psychedelic integration.
Oh yeah,
And
okay.
and she was talking about that, like you can physically move trauma in your body through different modalities, I guess, of like maybe EMDR, but she was talking more in like the psychedelic, plant-based medicine, that sort of thing. But yeah, this keeps coming up.
Yeah.
So you have to be licensed, right?
Yes.
To administer EMDR,
Yes.
facilitate. What's the word for that?
Yes. Well, yeah, I think it is administer. You can, pretty much, use whatever word you want to describe it, because it is imperative that you assess the client for emotional and physical, safety and stability. This is a practice to where it's kind of cool, because you don't have to go into, like, if you have a lot of deep trauma, you don't have to go into the full story and keep telling it and keep telling it, because EMDR is focused around a specific memory. So you can work at one specific memory at a time that is usually associated with a negative core belief. And so, I'll use a personal example, because that's how I make sense of most things when people personalize them.
Hmm.
I had a severe eating disorder growing up. I grew up in a dysfunctional family household, to where, my earliest memory is 8 years old, engaging in these eating disorder behaviors. My brain didn't even know what was going on. I couldn't logically make sense of what I was doing because I was a kid.
Hmm.
So I can logically, as an adult, say, wow, I was, that was, because the negative core belief that, I kind of had at 8 years old was that I'm not good enough. I'm disgusting, just really terrible things that you tell yourself at that age. And I couldn't move it out of my brain as an adult because my parents were telling me that. I was telling myself that. And that really was who I thought I was at the time. So logically, as an adult, I can say, well, I can move past that. That's fine. But it's still stuck there, if that
Mm.
makes sense. So
Yeah.
EMDR really helped me reprocess that and move it through in a way that my logical adult self can be like, you know what? You are okay. You can heal from that and, move forward. That wasn't the truth.
Wow.
Hmm.
So EMDR is really, would you say it's really specifically for trauma or anxiety or things? Does it like serve like certain types of conditions, I guess?
Yeah, most of the time people do think of it as a trauma modality. And I think of it in that way too. I'm not too sure if anybody uses it for anything else because usually it is associated with such a distressing event or a
Mhm.
distressing memory. And we have all levels of trauma. Even someone being humiliated in a public situation can be seen as a traumatic event if that person can't move past it. So, yes. And I do think it's, traditional talk therapy has its place, but it can only get you so far. And I can attest to that because, I hate to say this as a therapist, but if you're just talking about something in your present that, you have like a fight with a coworker or, you're fighting with your spouse, well, talking it out with a therapist can only get you so far. You could do the same thing with a friend or a trusted family member and not have to pay that
Yeah.
person, you know? But these modalities, these trauma modalities, such as EMDR, get to the deeper parts of us that we're holding on to. And you need a qualified clinician to help you move through that and make sure that you're, safe and processing it in a way. And what I didn't mention, you usually replace that negative belief with a positive self statement that
Okay.
it's true in the present. So, if my statement is, I'm not good enough, I'm flawed, I am disgusting, whatever the statement may be, you replace it with, I am good enough, I'm, a beautiful person. I just anything that you want to work toward with, and you talk about it with your therapist. Like, this is what I want to believe. This is what I believe right now, associated with this memory, but this is what I want to believe. And it's just an amazing process because still in my logical brain, I can't understand how it works, but it does. I can attest to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It reminds me of our ketamine episodes with the kind of rewiring the brain,
Hmm.
Mhm.
but you're just doing it with, I mean, eye movement essentially. So I'm curious, like, how did she go from experiencing that personal moment in the forest to turning this into an actual, like, applicable mode of therapy? Do you know the history of it? Like, how she,
I don't know
what
all
the
of it.
process was, like, what process that went through?
I'm not
And I
sure
guess
about
more
all
to
of
the point
the.
now, this might be more in your wheelhouse. How effective is it really? Does this work on everybody? Does this, are there real stats on this? Is it being
Uh-huh.
done enough that there's real science to it and that, percentages of success and things like that?
Hmm. I don't know all of the exact details about how, it moved from her having this experience to applying it to clients and making it, a healing modality of treatment. I do know she's probably more scientific minded than I am, and she probably had a process for it. Um, because it was established, I believe in the 1980s, it's still relatively new, right? But it
Okay.
is considered to be an evidence-based therapy. So there is a lot of research that says that it is effective, especially when it comes to PTSD, like, when you have an event trauma like war,
Hmm.
sexual assault, just something that's like an event that happens, which is just, PTSD in general, as opposed to complex PTSD, which is still not in the DSM for some reason. I think it will be in the next year or two. And complex PTSD is more of a series of events, like when you think of like childhood trauma,
Gotcha.
a series of events that led to the PTSD that you're experiencing as an adult right now. And so, you know, the research on that, like I said, a lot of positive, effectiveness in terms of PTSD. A lot of people have said that they can be re traumatized and it made them feel worse. And I think that has to do with not working with a qualified clinician that needs to assess for that safety right away and make
Mm,
sure that you're a person that really would benefit from this therapy.
gotcha.
So it really brings that stuff up to the
It
front
can.
then. So it can be re-traumatizing just as
Mhm.
much as healing. Wow. Okay. So yeah, you
It
really got
can.
got to know what you're
Yep.
doing there.
You really do. And, when I was practicing, when I was younger, because I was licensed and I was certified in EMDR, I was very selective on which clients I would, introduce. And you have to, obviously get their permission and work together if they're open to it at first. And, I would say, usually you generally see about 20 clients a week. I would only use it on about 4 to 5.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
because it is such a personal decision, and
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's in different levels of their healing and their recovery process and things like that. For my personal, when I did EMDR with a clinician, I experienced immediate relief,
Oh,
and
wow.
it blew my mind.
You're like,
Not because
okay,
it's
this is
not
it.
still there, but I don't get upset when I think about the memory.
That's, oh,
Hmm.
wow.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about tapping. Let's shift a little bit there, and I know you're
Sure.
going to walk us through an EFT tapping exercise as well.
Absolutely.
So,
That's good.
Yes. Well, and like you said, EFT All Star, it's called the emotional freedom technique. And
okay,
so basically, this is something that you can do on your own. And this is something that there are therapists that do specialize in this. And I would
okay,
suggest if anybody has, a lot of trauma, or there is like a serious issue that they want to work on, then I would, go to a practitioner that specializes in this just to make sure you're safe and
mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff. In my case, I was never certified in EFT, but I left the field when my kids were born for what, just to stay home with them. And I was having all this anxiety and panic come up, and I went on YouTube and I discovered the EFT tapping, and I would do it on myself to kind of bring my anxiety down, and I found so much relief. And basically, it's based on kind of like, how acupuncture, you
Mm-hmm.
stimulate different meridian points in your
Yep.
body. That's basically what the tapping does. So we have different points on our body that stimulate the amygdala, and it is very similar to EMDR, which you think of, kind of a negative thing that you want to process, right? Like if I'm having all this anxiety. So, you think of like, I'm having all this anxiety right now, my heart's beating, like I'm panicking, I'm afraid of this, I'm stressed out because of this, all these negative things. And then you think of something that you want to replace it with. The most basic one, do you want me just to go ahead and
Yeah,
show you? Okay.
let's
Yeah,
do
go
it.
for it.
For this. Okay.
We if you can explain as you go for our audio people, and if you want to see it, we're on YouTube.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I'll try to explain it. It is easier to see it.
Okay.
So basically, the points are right above the eyebrow, on the side of the eye, below the eye, on the bone,
Okay.
below the nose, below the lips, and then below the collarbone,
Okay.
under the arm, right where your bra is for women, and then on
Okay.
the top of the head.
Really? Okay.
And what you're going to
Huh.
do is you start with, it's called the karate chop point of the outside of your hand. And
Okay.
so, for example, I would start to talk about my anxiety. And so I would just say, as I'm tapping, I would just say, I have all this anxiety.
Right here.
I have all this anxiety in my body. It's making my heart race, making me feel stressed out. And even though I have all this anxiety, I still love and accept myself.
Okay.
Even though I have all this anxiety, I know I can calm myself down. Even though I have all this anxiety, I know that I am safe. Okay. And then once you're solidified in that, then you start with the eyebrow. Even though I have
Okay.
all this anxiety, I still love and completely accept myself. Even though I have all this anxiety, I know that I am safe and I can calm myself down. Even though I have all this
Moving around the eye.
anxiety,
I can't fit
I
under my
love
glasses.
and completely accept
Right here.
myself. Uh huh. Even though I have all this anxiety, I know that I am safe and I am calm. Even though I have all this anxiety, I love and completely accept myself. Even though I have all this anxiety, I am bringing my heart rate down and I am capable of calming myself. I have all this anxiety and I can let it go and be safe and calm.
Thanks for joining us on the Healthcare Uprising. Make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons before you go, and take a moment to think of a friend and hit that share button. You can find us on all the major audio platforms, and we've got video on YouTube and Patreon, patreon.com/healthcareuprising, if you want to watch us in action.
You can also find us on social media on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search Healthcare Uprising to find us. And if you're a new company or a creator with a cool new product for the healthcare space, or if you're someone with a personal healthcare journey and you'd like to share it with us here at The Uprising, please email us at healthcareuprising@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you about coming on the show. That's all for this dose of Healthcare Uprising. Till the next time, keep looking for the good in the world, because sometimes it's where you least expect it.
This has been a Shut Up production.